Hey, what's going down, people? This is the Black Trekker. Thank you for taking time out your morning, afternoon, or evening to sit in with me for a few ticks as I tell you about the wonderful new universe of Star Trek. Now, there's a new television show out. The Star Trek television show is called Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is under the command of Captain Christopher Pike. Captain Christopher Pike is a gentleman that's before Captain Kirk. He's the original captain of the Starship Enterprise. He explored the Alpha and Beta Quadrant for about 5 years on an exploratorial mission to explore new things. He's the actual person that came up with the term space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. He actually came up with that saying. He said it in the episode. Now, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to tell you about how this episode and this show ties in with Star Trek actual original canon. And then I'm going to also tell you what's new about the show. And then I'm going to break down what the actual synopsis of the episode was about. And then you'll be able to be fully caught up with what's going on with the Star Trek universe as of today, May 5th, 2022. The latest episode came out yesterday, May 4th, 2022. And how this ties in with the original series is that, as I stated, Captain Pike was the original commanding officer of the Enterprise. So what happens now is this is the beginning of the 5-year mission. This is where Christopher Pike is like, okay, I'm going to get back into the saddle and I'm going to start exploring space. But he was doing it begrudgingly. He got orders from an admiral. At this particular time, Christopher Pike learns that he knows his future. He knows he's going to die in about 10 years. And he's very, very scared. And what I mean by dying is that he has the fate of he's going to be an invalid. He's not going to be able to do anything. He's basically going to be in a chair. And he's basically going to be talking through a computer. And he's not going to be able to speak. So his way of life, as he know it, as being a strong-willed, commanding figure, is going to be over. And he's going to be living basically off the mercy of other people. So from his perspective, his life is going to be pretty much over. That's why I said he's going to be dead. Now, with that, he has this constant fear over and over again. It grips him. But Starfleet has a problem. Starfleet has an emergency that they need to have fixed. And no matter what you're going through, no matter what you're dealing with, duty calls. So a Starfleet admiral finally finds him and tells him, listen, I need you to get back on that horse. Interesting enough, he was out in the middle of nowhere in the snowstorm riding a horse, and Starfleet finds him. So that lets you know how determined they are. Now, what's new about this is that it really goes into depth about breaking down Christopher Pike's history, and it also breaks down his personal life. Never before has it been shown a Starfleet captain intimate in the setting. I mean, when they go to the actual initial episode, it's a woman laying on this bed that's pretty much topless. So that right there is new. So with that being said, Christopher Pike, like I said, he begrudgingly follows the order, but he follows it. And then he goes and he's taken in the shuttlecraft to the Enterprise, waiting in orbit. But there's a mystery going around. And the mystery is that a new species was detected. And like Starfleet, because Starfleet believes in exploring strange new worlds, they send out an expedition ship. And the expedition ship is to make first contact in a peaceful manner. Now, why are they making first contact? Well, they're making first contact because they detected the civilization having warp capability. And that's one of the hallmarks, one of the determining factors of Starfleet to reach out, because of the fact that they have faster than light capability. And faster than light capability means that they can get out into the actual galaxy, and they can actually meet new species, and they can actually be a part of the interstellar community. But this is also one of the main reasons why Starfleet doesn't interfere with lesser developed civilizations, because they don't have that ability. Case in point, 21st century Earth doesn't have that ability. So if there was a such thing as Starfleet or a such thing as the Federation, they wouldn't make any kind of communication with us. They would observe us, and I'm sure they would send scientists down to observe us in a clandestine manner, but they would not interfere. So what happens is this starship tries to make first contact, but unfortunately, they lose communication with that starship. So Starfleet finds Christopher Pike, because he's the most experienced captain in all of Starfleet for whatever reason. And what happens is that he gets orders that he needs to take the mothballed Enterprise, because at this time, the Starship Enterprise was in space dock being repaired. Now, this all ties in with Star Trek Discovery, because the Enterprise was in a massive fight with Discovery in season 4. And what happened is that it's under repair currently. So with that being said, this is just basically is picking up. The Starship Enterprise was damaged. It's being repaired so it can be back into space. But this admiral has rushed it because this scientific exploratory ship is gone missing. And the Enterprise is always the only ship available in the whole entire Starfleet to go find out what's going on. How convenient. Anyway, so Captain Christopher Pike recalls Spock. Spock is on Vulcan. He is about to get married to his Vulcan wife. And he's about to consummate his marriage, but then unfortunately he gets interrupted by Captain Pike. And then Spock tells his wife that he'll be back so they can finish developing their marriage. So anyway, it picks up on the Enterprise. They warp, and Christopher Pike is like, okay, well, meet me. I'll be in my ready room. And Christopher Pike is dealing with a haunting image of the fact that he knows that in 10 years, he's going to be confined to basically a wheelchair. Now, at this particular time, the Federation has the ability of having hover technology. So he'll be in a wheelchair where he'll essentially be hovering, and he'll be an invalid. He'll be literally talking through a computer. But this is his fate, and this is something that he dreads terribly. So what occurs is Lieutenant Commander Spock comes in, and Lieutenant Commander Spock knows what's going on. He knows it's something that's troubling him. And finally, Captain Christopher Pike breaks down that he has seen the future, and he knows that he is going to be confined to a wheelchair. Now, he knows this because of the fact that he was sent to the Klingon monastery called Borath. And Borath is only known for 2 things: enlightenment into your spirituality and your growth, and also temporal mechanics. They have some kind of device there that you can see the future. And so Spock says, I don't think you went there for your faith. And he was like, no, I didn't go there for my faith. I went there because of the fact that I saw something for the future. I saw my own death. Now, let's take it to death in context of that. He realizes that he's not going to be the man he is today. He's a strong-willed, active, no sense, able to take care of situations on his own, command men and women into dangerous situations. He's not going to be able to do that no more. He's going to be basically confined to the chair. He's not going to be able to speak. And when he does speak, it's going to be through a computer simulation of his voice. So he knows his life is pretty much over. But Lieutenant Commander Spock tells him that knowing about his death is a way that he'll be able to be a better leader and be able to help those individuals lead and live better lives. And Christopher Pike somewhat believes it, but he continues on. And so finally he gets a message from Uhura saying that they are finally arrived at the star system of the new alien species, which is known as the Kylie. And so they discovered that the derelict starship that had the explorers that were going to make first contact in orbit. It's damaged, but it's still structurally intact. And they scan Commander Spock. There's no life on the ships. And they discover, wait a second. It's not necessarily a warp drive technology. They're using antimatter to create weapons. And what happens is that Spock and the new security officer are having a philosophical difference of why it's a good idea to raise the shields. The security officer was basically saying these people don't have no outer planet ships. They have not been able to go to the next star system. So that lets you know that they don't have warp drive. Either it was given to them or they stumbled upon it. And so Spock was like, well, that's not necessarily true. It could be a number of other factors of why they have warp technology. And the Enterprise was just updated with new sensors. So they were able to determine that it's not warp drive. It's actually warp bombs. And so what happens is that Captain Pike agrees with the security officer and they raise shields. And thankfully they raise shields in nick of time because they got hit with 3 plasma torpedo weapons, which is 23rd century technology. They are a 21st century technology species and comparable to humans of today. So there's no reason why they should have that level of technology. But they do. And the technology, the weapon systems are weak compared to the shields of the Enterprise. But nonetheless, they shouldn't have that technology. So with that being said, they are interested and they figure out, okay, well, we know what's going on here. So what they do is they go to the sick bay and they get the doctor to make the disguise. Now, how it's different, what's new about this series is that they make the disguise, and it's not like a prosthetic disguise, like a makeup. It's actually a genetic disguise where the cells in the body are reconstructed and it changes the actual image of the face to look like the aliens on the actual planet. Pretty dope. And so what happens is that they beam down. Now, unfortunately, Lieutenant Commander Spock's physiology is so different that it's difficult for the actual chemicals to maintain his disguise. So while they're down there, he is starting to revert back to looking like a regular Vulcan. And this is not good because when they beam down to the planet, they clearly see that this planet is in turmoil, kind of like today, real life today. And because of that, they realize that it's two different factions. And they didn't break down the factions in depth, but nonetheless, it is two sides of the planet that are at war with each other. And one side has developed these plasma torpedoes, and that right there is a decisive advantage over the other planet, the other side of the planet that doesn't have plasma torpedoes. So what happens is that they discover that the crew that was from the exploratorial ship is in a top secret research facility. So Commander Spock and also the new security officer and Captain Christopher Pike, they infiltrate this. They knock out to some scientists, and then what they do is they copy their uniforms and then they get smuggled inside. But they find the actual crew members, and the crew member is number one. She has a relationship with Captain Christopher Pike. This is the woman who's second in charge of the actual ship, of the Enterprise. And there's a moment of unnecessary filler of them talking about past events and being emotional, which is completely not necessary in this episode. And then what happens is that they start sneaking out. They get into an elevator. It's a woman, or rather an alien woman, that's observing Captain Christopher Pike. She looks like she's enamored by him, and she thinks that he's a good-looking, gentleman. And she starts to see that Spock's ears are starting to ridge up and get sharp because the cocktail that was used to be able to help him look like the indigenous people is starting to wear off, and it's starting to wear off even faster. So what happens is that they get into this big lobby, and the crew fight all of the remaining people in there. And then, so what happens is they're still too far on the ground because this complex has some kind of complex shielding. Not like shields in the traditional sense, but the metal is preventing them from being able to beam out. So they get higher to the surface. And then Christopher Pike is like, well, there's nothing that they can do. These people have this technology. They can leave, and then they can just destroy themselves. But Christopher Pike is a noble man. He believes in being honorable, and he's not going to let that happen. He's not going to let this occur because by all accounts, this is the fault of Starfleet. And really what happened was this. In Star Trek Discovery Season 4, there was a massive battle in space. And that massive battle in space was comprised of dozens, if not hundreds of ships. And it was within a light year of this, well, not even a light year. It was within a half a light year of this actual star system. And even with the technology and the telescopes of their time, they could see it. And so with that being said, they could be able to detect it. They had satellites that were like almost a half a light year out. And as you know, the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second. And it literally takes 6 months to travel half a light year. So with that being said, they got the images back and they were able to see that it was some kind of massive battle that occurred. And they were able to reverse engineer the technology just off of visual records, which is pretty impressive. And what happens is that Christopher Pike is like, okay, well, we're going to stay. And then number one was like, well, what about General Order number 1? Now, this is before the Prime Directive was actually established. So General Order number 1 is basically not interfering with alien life forms. and that are on a lesser technological plane. So with that being said, Christopher Pike was like, well, screw it. Screw General Order Number 1, because we're responsible for these people. And the Federation wasn't technically responsible, but what occurred was is that battle was so close to their star system and their technology was advanced enough where they saw it. And the Federation, after the battle, didn't really do try to like clean up or try to, scrub what occurred. And so these people have got access to warp technology. And even if they are not able to go faster than light, they have the technology to make bombs, which they can destroy themselves. So inadvertently, it's the fault of Starfleet and also the other factions. So what Christopher Pike does is, with Spock, they stay there, they get to the top, and the elevator opens and it basically says, take me to your leader. And so as it comes back, Christopher Pike is before the leader of this particular country or nation. And he explains to them that, this is our fault. This was our error. We did not better conceal ourselves from you. And the leader of the country was basically like, I understand what you're saying. However, whoever has the biggest stick, meaning the most powerful weapons, makes the rules. And she was like, well, thank you very much. And she ain't want to deal with nothing else they had to say. And she was just like, all right, we'll take them away. I'm going to put you in a gulag somewhere, in a prison. And that's essentially what was going to happen. But Christopher Pike was preparing for that because he realized that she was going to be obstinate and she wasn't going to, she's accustomed to power and she didn't want to play ball. So what occurred is that he said to the Enterprise, make yourself visible. Go on to low observation of the actual city. And basically what he mean by that is come down from outer space, hover above the city, say like 2,000 or 3,000 feet, just high enough where they could see the ship. And then the alarms go off, the air raid sirens go off because some unknown large vessel has appeared. And then the windows open up, and then it's the Enterprise. And he says to her, basically, and I'm paraphrasing, I have the biggest stick, so therefore I make the rules. And then what happens is that a few minutes later, then it's a television broadcaster that's saying that the leaders of these two warring factions have come together for the first time in more than 100 years. And it's because of the arrival of the aliens. And there's a beautiful panoramic view of the Enterprise hovering over this city. It's gorgeous. And there's a picture of these birds flying over the Enterprise. It's an actually outstanding scene. Kudos to the actual CGI people that did that. And they're talking and they're arguing and they're not getting along, even though they're in the presence of a technologically more advanced civilization. And they're still arguing amongst each other. So what Christopher Pike does is he tells Uhura to get some records from Earth in the 21st century and also records of Earth in the 23rd century of what it looks like now. He beams down to this planet of these leaders arguing on like international television. And he basically says to them, you guys are fighting for different reasons, different, political reasons. And ultimately, these political reasons are going to destroy your planet. You have the means to destroy yourselves. And he said, our people are not that much different. Humans are not that much different compared to what you are now. And he showed them what humans look like now in the 21st century, before any kind of cataclysmic war or any kind of outbreak of anything, terrible. And he showed pictures of Washington, D.C. He showed pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And he also showed Paris today. And he was like, this is before everything went awry. And then what happened is that he said, and this is what happened when we had political instability. This is what happened when we started fighting amongst each other. And he was like, over 600,000 species destroyed, 30% of the world's population killed. And he showed images of bombs going off. And it showed the faces of the people that were outside watching the actual broadcast. And they were shocked and they was in horror. And you could even see the leaders from these different countries. They were in shock and horror because this is what their future looked like. And he was like, you guys are going to destroy yourselves. I see it. And he was like, or you could join the Federation. And that's a moment of pause because they're like, okay, this technologically advanced civilization can be able to help us cure all of our hopes and our dreams and make them all realities, or we can continue to sit here and bicker and argue. And the next scene shows children in school drawing the pictures of the Enterprise, engineers building ships, doctors talking about different physiologies of humans and Vulcans. And that basically lets you know that they made the right decision and they decided to join the Federation. And then what occurs is that the Enterprise is warping out of the system. So I guess they made first contact the correct way. Even though this civilization did not have faster than light technology, they did have warp bombs. They actually had antimatter bombs. And if they would have not intervened, then ultimately those antimatter bombs would have destroyed that civilization. So that civilization, the Kylie civilization, made the right choice to be able to be a part of the Federation. And what happens is it takes place at the Space Dock 1. And the admiral that recruited Christopher Pike for this mission tells him that he had to go to the CNC, which the CNC is the Chief Naval Commander. He's in charge of all of naval operations in Starfleet. And he had to basically, grovel and say, hey, listen, we needed Christopher Pike on this mission, so please don't, throw him in prison because he violated the General Order number 1. And in that scene, he said, we're thinking about calling it the Prime Directive. So, and Christopher Pike was like, nah, that ain't gonna stick. No, that ain't gonna stay around. Nobody ain't gonna take it like that. Nobody ain't gonna call it that. And so that's what occurred. And so now, with that being said, that was the first episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Where I think it's going to be heading, I think the producers and the creators of Paramount realized that you got to start listening to the fandom. You got to start listening to the people who watch the show, who sit and let 7 days go by until the next episode comes on with excitement and anticipation to see what's next. And I think what they're doing is they're starting getting back to the actual core root of Star Trek. Because if I can be candid, Star Trek Picard wasn't about exploration. Not at all. Star Trek Discovery was not about exploration. All 4 seasons. It was dark, it was morbid, and quite frankly, they had huge budgets, but it was not about exploration, which is the core mantra of Star Trek in general. So they're getting back to that. And this episode was pretty good. It was pretty good. I would give this episode a B+. Definitely. Now, generally with new shows, it kind of runs slow, but in all reality, this episode was pretty good. It was far better than most of the episodes I've seen of the other series. So I think that you should definitely check it out on Paramount and, make your own opinions. And in the comment sections, by all means, post what you think. Again, thank you for taking the time out. Like, share, and subscribe to the Black Trekkers channel. And above all things, have a good night and live long.